But rather than me get into it from that perspective at this particular moment in time, I'll delay some of my more specific reactions until later on. For the moment, I want to bring in a legal expert. Obviously, he's a lawyer, a renowned lawyer. So let's get that out the way. Got his own law firm, partner in his own law firm, Douglas Hicks to be exact, Douglas Hicks Law. He's the former attorney, served on the bench with Johnny Cochran for the O.J. Simpson trial. He's my buddy. I lean on him a lot when it comes to legal expertise. The one and only Carl Douglas is here with yours truly, Stephen A. Smith. What's going on, Carl? How are you, sir? How's everything?
Stephen, first of all, thanks so much, my brother, for having me on your show. But let me try to disabuse you of all of that fear. I understand that, but I want to disabuse you of that fear, my brother.
Okay, please, take it away.
Sure. What we have here has been an historic day. But the facts be known, there really wasn't any dispute factually about what happened in this case.
Okay.
If truth be known, there really wasn't much doubt, I believe, that the allegations were accurate. What happened instead, because the former president is a great manipulator, he has simply tried to twist what are really undisputed facts, that Stormy Daniels was paid, that there was an understanding of why she was paid, when she was paid. Of course, it was to impact the elections. And of course, Trump paid Michael Cohen back the money. Those facts are not in dispute. But what Trump has done, regrettably, is twisted that, and you hear the allegations of rigged. You hear the talk about how corrupt this judge is. It is unthinkable that any defendant would characterize his own judge as being corrupt. So what has happened, regrettably, is it has simply caused each side, as you have aptly noted, to move into their own corners. But I do not think the prospects are as dire as you fear, because this is only a paper case about paying a porn star. There are 3 other prosecutions that are pending that are far more speaking to the concerns that you express, because it goes to the heart of the former president's attempts to overturn the election, to attack our democracy. And I understand any concerns about those cases, but not this one, I don't think.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, Carl, is this. Work with me here, okay? We've got 11 falsified invoices, 12 falsified ledger entries, and 11 checks falsely recording the repayment as legal, quote, retainers, end quote. So anybody that sees that amount of charges leveled against somebody, the presumption of guilt is definitely going to come attached to it. When we look at the 12 jurors, you know what? They did their jobs according to most folks, okay? We're not going to dispute that. We're certainly not going to sit here and call the former president innocent, not when he's been convicted on all 34 felony counts, for crying out loud. Nobody's that silly. But work with me here. He's scheduled to be sentenced on the morning of July 11th at Manhattan Supreme Court, all right? That's 4 days before the Republican National Convention. Oh, by the way, the chances are they're saying that he may not even see any jail time. So I guess from a legal perspective, explain to me how somebody that's been convicted on 34 felony counts ain't going to get to see any jail time, because that's what I saw Dan Abrams from News Nation and various others speculating as to what may be a possibility of happening. How is that possible?
Stephen A., add Carl E. Douglas to that list of advisors who tells you he doubts that the former president will ever serve any jail time for this case. The facts are the facts. In 90% of Class E felonies, the person who's convicted does not serve any time in jail. The former president, despite what you may think about him, has no prior record. This is a relatively minor crime because it's only a Class E felony. Class A is a murder. And then when you understand that 90% of people who were convicted never serve time in jail, there's a maximum, of course, of 4 years, but it is not. And Stephen, I would dare to say, were the former president sentenced to any significant time in jail, your concerns could then be greater realized. And I'm sure Judge Mershon echoes and understands that concern. Despite everything that the former president did during the trial and before the trial, despite 10 different findings of contempt, the judge never chose the option of having the former president put into jail, knowing the impact that it could have on the entire nation. I believe Judge Mershon will take that wisdom and exercise discretion in some other ways. But Stephen A., no matter if that happened, I predict his lawyers are going to seek to delay the sentencing for a couple of weeks, for 30 days or so, to make sure it is after the convention. And I predict his lawyers are going to file a notice to appeal. So there's not going to be any imposition of any sentence for months, probably not until years from today.
Carl Douglas, some people out there would ask the question, if the likelihood of him receiving any jail time from open and tap was slim to none, then why go through all of this? How do you answer that question, not just as a legal mind, but an American citizen who has a vote?
Because it is important to exercise and to understand the rule of law. It is important that we exercise and understand that no one is above the law. Particularly this president and particularly his supporters have to understand that. That is the very foundation of our democracy, that no one, even a former president, is above the law. And if you violate the law, you must come to bear, and justice must be exercised freely and fully to the full extent of the law. So the former president chose to fight. That is his right. He stands on the presumption of innocence, but 12 jurors who were fair-minded, who were committed to the process, listened to all the evidence, listened to every question and every answer that was given. And then, after 12 hours of fair deliberations, came unanimously to the conclusion that he's responsible beyond a reasonable doubt for each of the 34 charges against him.
Carl Douglas, Judge Mershon told the jury, if I recall, weeks ago, or if not sooner, that they did not need unanimity to convict. 4 could agree on one crime, 4 on a different one, and the other 4 jurors on another. He said he would treat a 4-4-4 as a unanimous verdict. My question to you is, how common is that? Does that not raise the specter of scrutiny? What do you feel about the judge echoing those sentiments to the jurors? They didn't have to vote in concert, all 12. 4 could feel one way, 4 could feel another, 4 could feel another. When have we seen that before?
That is going to be the $64,000 question that is raised on appeal. Nothing that the defense did trying to cross-examine Michael Cohen is going to result in any sort of an overturn of the verdict. But this theory that the judge decided, given the rarity that these cases are being prosecuted, is going to be the central focus of their appeal. And if there is any chance of that appeal being, or that conviction being overturned, Stephen A., that would be the reasons upon which it is based. Now, everyone on both sides of the ledger for the prosecution and defense have briefed the issue well. Judge Mershon has been very careful and has bent over backwards throughout the trial to make sure that the defense is given every opportunity to make their record. He has not been anyone who has made decisions on the fly or without significant consideration, knowing as he does that this will be a case that will live in the annals of legal history forever. So I'm confident, because I don't know the law. I'm not a new law lawyer, but I'm confident, just knowing the way Judge Mershon has conducted this trial, that he is firm in his beliefs, resolute in his legal reasoning, And I'm confident that his decision is going to be supported on appeal, but that is the central issue. I agree.
It is a central issue, and I got to tell you this because it ultimately came down to it only taking 4 jurors to convict Trump. Essentially, that's what happened. Now, I'm not going to say that's what happened, but that was the situation laid out before them. You didn't need 12 jurors to convict you. You only needed 4. That's number one. Number two, if I remember correctly, we're talking about something considered a relative misdemeanor charge that was elevated to a felony, but whose statute of limitations had expired. What about the notion that the defense can make that argument on appeal, and how effective could that potentially be, Carl Douglas?
Stephen A., one thing you have to understand is in New York, in California, where I practice, and virtually in every other jurisdiction in America, trial verdicts are overturned less than 5% of the time. That means, flip around, 95% of every trial conviction is affirmed on appeal. So when you think of it in that way, you have to be confident that this case will more likely than not be affirmed on appeal. It's not like the parties in this case pulled this theory together quickly. There were reams and reams of research that was done by both sides. The judge and his staff had ample time to analyze and question and challenge the full breadth of the implications of the ruling. Trust me when I say, Stephen A., and your audience should understand, no judge wants to be reversed on appeal. Trust me when I say every judge will do everything in their power to not be reversed on appeal. Judge Merchan is presided over the largest case in his entire career. He will be known, and his legacy will be forged by what happens to this case on appeal. So given the stakes that everyone faces in this particular case, and given how the judge has been fair and has bent over backwards to give the defendants every opportunity to file frivolous motions repeatedly, the judge has given ample time, despite every effort to delay this case past the past November election. But the judge has held firm and been fair. And Stephen A., there's always something that can be the source of an issue on appeal, but it is so rare that it ever is effective. And I think it's not going to happen in this case as well.
You know, it's interesting because before I let you get on out of here, I will say to you, I appreciate the intel. I appreciate your information so much. Thank you for that. But I'm shocked that you don't have an elevated level of fear. I'm looking at a situation right now. Now, he's not going to jail in all likelihood because of this. There were people who were speculating he could simply get to office and then pardon himself. But I'm reading the law here, and it talks about, you know, that only is applicable to state convictions. Right? I'm sorry, to federal convictions, not state ones. That's right. You can't. This is a state crime, so because of that, he can't pardon himself. He can only pardon himself on federal crimes. He can't pardon himself on state crimes. So, but then again, if it's not going to prevent him from winning the election, then it really doesn't matter. I'm shocked that you don't find yourself concerned, considering that he came out there and said it was rigged. You see folks on the right saying it was rigged. They're accusing Judge Merchan of being a liberal. They're accusing jurors of being tainted before the trial even started. So he's basically putting the stuff in play to cause absolute mayhem. How is it that that's not a reason to be concerned, Carl Douglas?
Because, Stephen A., I am blessed to have been living on this earth 69 years. I'm blessed to have been a practicing lawyer for 44 years. I have seen the ups and downs, and I have such confidence and faith in our American system of justice, despite even a Donald Trump and all of the damage that he has done since he has become president, that I remain hopeful and a strong believer that the American system of justice will survive even a Donald Trump. That is how foundationally I am grounded in the strength of the American
Well,
people and the American justice system. For me, it's not just something that's just happened. This attack is indeed something that is serious. I did not say that I am not concerned. I am vigilant and I am concerned. And that is why I continue going on shows like you to promote the importance and the values that we hold dear so that even your listeners will understand the threats of what the Donald Trump legacy could have on the very fiber of our people. But I am not of the belief that we will not survive even the Donald Trump era. We've survived famines and pandemics. We've survived racisms and wars. I am confident that we will survive this as well.
you believe that even if Donald Trump still found a way as a convicted felon to win the presidency of the United States in this upcoming election, you still feel that way?
I still have such belief in the strength of the American democracy that I do not think even a second Donald Trump's presidency would be able to overcome the fiber of our democracy. I still think that there are still good people, Republicans, who believe in Donald Trump, but who believe more in the resiliency of the American democracy and would not do anything to help him overturn that democracy. I must continue going to bed each night believing that, Stephen A., and I do.
Carl Douglas, always appreciate you edifying me, edifying our audience, and displaying your passion along with your legal expertise, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, man. Really appreciate it.
Brother, always a pleasure. Please call out, reach out to me. I'm always there for you and your great audience. Have a great day.
Thank you. You do the same. You do the same. The one and only Carl Douglas, famed attorney beside Johnny Cochran and others during the O.J. Simpson